Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This infringement of copyright is called fair use, and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news, reporting, teaching, and parody. This means you! We are going to get political in this review, which means, oh boy, we're talking about race, as this is a very hot-button issue right now. Why, I hear you ask? Well, simply put, it's 2016, and people are very touchy nowadays, as no one is satisfied with the rights that they have, and want to take rights away from others, playing more race cards than one deck can hold, getting people fired, taking out political rallies, and destroying universities. Now that said, this episode isn't the absolute worst that could have been done. It's bad, yes, very bad, but they could have done it 1,000 times worse than what they did, and they certainly deserve credit for that. So this episode of Family Guy starts with the guy sitting on the couch in the front yard. Later, Peter sees the couch was stolen and decides to start a community watch with Joe, Quagmire, and Cleveland. One night, while Peter's out on the job, he sees a shadowy figure trying to break into Cleveland's house, so Peter shoots him, thinking that it's a robbery. But it turns out it's just Cleveland Jr., Cleveland's son. This is where we'll start the review. The doctor comes in with the description of the family as brown, just as a cheap shot as a racist joke, when Peter comes in to apologize. Cleveland and his wife call Peter a bigoted racist. And here's the thing, though. Cleveland Jr. was going through the window so they could save air conditioning because Cleveland wanted to save money for air conditioning. This puts Cleveland in the wrong for the story, as he can't let his own son go through the fucking door, and Mrs. Brown even more so in the wrong for assuming Peter is a racist because he's white. This is where the politics comes in, as this is very similar to the Baltimore riots that happened last year as the whole cops versus black argument started. The setup was Peter saw a shadow breaking into Cleveland's house. When it reached into its jacket pocket, Peter shot. Now, to be fair, I don't see why Peter didn't shine a flashlight on the shadowy figure. I suppose it's because he's an idiot, and we all know he's an idiot. Hell, even Cleveland at the end of the episode explains that yes, he knows Peter shot him because he's an idiot. Which is where this episode can be seen as alright. The fact that Cleveland sees Peter means well in the end is actually a really good moment in of itself, so I can accept the ending, but it's the build-up that causes this to be a really crappy cartoon. So let's get back to that build-up.
And what about my son's rights not to be shot?
Nobody really has the right to not be shot. I mean, people are fighting for said right, but I have yet to hear of an actual right that says you cannot be shot, especially if it's accidental, which Joe even explains that under the circumstances Peter was in his right to shoot. But of course, due to Cleveland Jr. being black and Peter being white, of course, Peter is labeled as the racist, despite the fact it alone was pretty close-minded and bigoted to assume that Peter shot Jr. just because he was black. Especially since Peter was here to apologize, putting Cleveland in way more of a wrong than Peter is in this situation. Yet the whole episode wants you to feel like Peter is in fact the racist, and it shows that it does because the whole town of Quahog is against him just the next scene. Hell, Peter even tries to make it up to Cleveland again with beer and cigarettes, before it turns into a Molotov cocktail that he throws into Cleveland's house as just another cheap excuse to try to put Peter in the wrong, even going so far as to arrest him. We then get to Peter Schmidt, Lois's father, who hires a lawyer to make Cleveland Jr. look out to be a thug. And while this tries to shed some light on the situation, it only makes Peter look out to be a bigger dick of the scenario. At this point, it's impossible for either side to win, especially since it ends on a fucking throwaway gag that causes everyone to drop the whole thing because black-on-black violence or some shit like that. This episode, again, does well with the racing. It does handle the scenario well enough to be both realistic and interesting. I just wish that Cleveland was also put into a bad light here as well as Peter, which is what makes me so angry at this episode. No matter what Peter did to try to make it up to Cleveland, he wound up looking bad in the end. There was just no winning for him. I feel like this episode was just more to throw racist joke after racist joke at the screen, and not really caring to write anything worth merit when boiled down. All the episode is, just one big racist joke. I wouldn't fault it for doing racial humor, as I for one think it's okay, but when that's all your episode is based around, I'm sorry, but you fail at making even the simplest of stories. Thank you for watching this video. If you guys liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more, you can hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.